Well, hello and welcome, kiddos. This is Mr. Robinson here with Mr. Robinson's Q&A Power Hour, here for you to answer your questions that you had in Math 1 and Applied Math. Somehow some people asked some Applied Math questions that leaked into the Math 1 stuff. I'm not really sure how you did that because you didn't get a link to that form. Only a couple questions there. I think I have a few, like 20-ish questions, maybe a little more than 20 in here, so I'll get started in a second. But before I do, I want to stress a couple things here. Some of the questions that are asked here, or that you might have a question on, may already be answered in some form. I have a week 0 Q&A, and you don't have to watch the video, but look at the questions that are asked once you click on the assignment name where it says it. Like if I go ahead and show you this right here, right now, if I go to a Math 1, say, for example, and go to week 0, you'll see the questions right here. So take a look and see what questions were asked here for the week 0 part, and then check out that video, see the answer. The other thing I want to show you, of course, is the attendance and announcements section, the daily bulletins. Here I answer a lot of questions as well, not necessarily questions that are asked, but the questions that you have, there might be answers to them within here. I know it's a lot of reading, but you're supposed to take that in the morning and then see what goes on there. There's a lot less writing there. Today's a little more just because I want to hit it for the weekend and say what you have to do going into Monday because your assignments are due Tuesday. While I'm on that page really quickly, let me just show you. When you first log into Google Classroom, whether it's on computer or our phone, or on phone, you start on the stream page. I take it back. You start from your main classes page right here. But when you go into a class, you start on the stream page. I recommend you do not use the stream page to go to assignments for several reasons here. I recommend that you go to the one that says classwork. Number one, classwork is a lot more organized. When I say something is posted and it's underneath something or whatever, this is where you can find those headers. Where are my attendance and announcements? Where's my tutoring? Or what's within tutoring, Q&A Power Hour, and week 1 stuff. Number two, they're displayed in a specific order here, either by most recent or by the way that I want you to do the work. So in week number 1 for Math 1, you guys got to do all this stuff here. Start from the top. Start from the top and work your way down. I was wondering why some people did the week 1 distance learning assessment first, and I believe it's probably because it was the last thing that I uploaded in the stream. So you probably saw it on top where it said, oh, I posted a new assignment called week 1 distance learning assessment, and you clicked on it and did it. So if you do it in the stream that's way out of order, that doesn't really have context for what it is that we're doing there, I can understand where you may be a little bit more confused as far as what you're doing and when. So when you, and this isn't just my class, I'm sure this is for any teacher here. So when you, again, log in, this is either PC or phone, or computer or phone, make sure that you go to the classwork portion right there as you log in. And of course, your teachers probably have it laid out a lot better. I certainly do here as well. And I won't delete previous weeks. Like, so week 0 is still up here, not much there. But what I will do is I will be deleting daily bulletins after a full week, and I'll be deleting daily attendance every day at noon. And make sure you check out my weekly schedule so you know when I'm available. I'm normally sitting at the computer here from 8 to 3, maybe a little break at noon because I'm getting lunch. Otherwise, I'm mostly sitting at my computer here. Make sure you know that. Daily Zoom sessions link is always going to be up here. I'm likely going to provide another link eventually when it comes to individual tutoring hours here. As far as signing up for that, so make sure you're aware of that as well. All right, so you probably see the questions here on the side, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with you guys right here. These questions were asked, I'm going to ask, these questions are going to be asked and answered in the order that they were received. You may see duplicate questions. They may either be because multiple people had the same question or someone submitted the same kind of question twice. Maybe they didn't know if it was submitted correctly, and you'll probably see duplicates here. So if I see a duplicate question, I'll likely answer it very brief the same way. Or if there's new information on it, or if I think of something else I want to say, then I'll answer it like that. So some questions may go faster than others based on the fact that they're duplicates. Keep that in mind. And every so often I hit an applied math question, just to make sure you understand. I'll say that it's applied math based here. And if you're looking for your question here, you can either go to Mr. Robinson's Q&A Power Hour week 1, based on the content that we're talking about, or look in the description section down here on YouTube so you can see what kinds of questions there are and what timestamp you can find them. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get started with question number 1 here. If we achieve a SMART score of 80 or better on IXL, can you see it without us submitting anything? This is for both Applied Math and Math 1. Keeping in mind for Applied Math, your required sections and activities that you have in this week is from IXL. So this is a more pertinent question for you. Math 1, yours is optional for this set right here because all your assignments that are required are in Khan Academy. So to answer this question here, A SMART score of 80 or better on IXL. Keep in mind, for you to get full credit for your assignment, if it's required, you must receive a SMART score of 80 or better. Top you can receive is 100, and I think that's climbing all the way through to mastery. 80 can be achieved pretty quickly if you get your questions right and consistently. If you get half of them wrong, it's going to take a long time. I saw somebody spend at least 90 questions going through it, and they still didn't get to 80 because they're getting half of them wrong here. So before I answer this, I just want to state that use scratch paper, write your stuff down, double check your work. You can plug in your XYs and anything else that you have there. Make sure you have your answer right before you move on. Otherwise, you're going to have to answer more questions to get your SMART score to 80. Now, can I see it without you submitting anything? Yes. Every single question that you do, once you've submitted it, I can't show you the screen because I want to protect names and those who already did things and didn't, got things right or wrong. So I won't show you. But you don't have to show me, you don't have to tell me anything about it as long as you are logged into your name and that's synced to us through the portal, through IXL, all that kind of stuff. So you don't need to do anything on Google Classroom as far as submissions. You don't need to report it to me. Once you submit something, I can see every previous problem that you did in the order. I can see what answer you put. I can see whether it's right or wrong. And best of all, I can see your SMART score. So on Tuesday at 8 a.m., that's when I'm going to just make sure that, that's when I probably start grading some things. So keep that in mind. That's kind of your deadline. If you start doing things late after that, you'll probably be penalized. But you don't have to submit anything. You just answer your questions there, and then you're taken care of. So again, and this is for every assignment. This is also Khan Academy, guys. This is also attendance and Google Forms and stuff. You don't have to tell me anything as long as you're logged in properly, and then you submit the things the way you're supposed to. All right, with that down, let's go to the next question here. And the next question says, is this online school going to be 2 or 5 weeks? Because I've heard that from 2 different people. I think really six or so weeks though, right? So, I mean, whatever. But you're saying, are we only doing a couple weeks or are we going the rest of the way? I understand where your contradiction comes into play and why people might have said one or the other. The reason the 2-week thing likely is being said is because right now our district is right now closed until May 1st. That's what the superintendent has said, or what the county mayor or what have you has said already right now, that we are closed until May 1st. Now, that's just right now, just a precedence that's set, because if we said that we're closed, see, when we said we were closed till April 16th early on, there was no way we could have opened up earlier if we wanted to. Once we said April 16th, we had to be set on opening after that date. We couldn't start before that at that point. So, and when we closed that first week, maybe it was premature. At this point, it seems like it really wasn't, but maybe it was a premature thing, which means we couldn't have come back within that week and said, never mind, guys, we'll go to school. It's all good. It was a hoax, which clearly it's not. But right now we're closed till May 1st, and we're covering ourselves. So just in case we could open again, we have the ability to. Now, what a lot of schools have already done is they're closed till summer. They're already closed till summer. Sacramento County or California, I think itself, is recommending that schools close until summer as well. We have not yet closed until summer, but if I had $5 to lay down to bet on it, I can bet my bottom dollar here that we are closed until summer. So, hope for the best, plan for the worst, and, really the hoping for the best is that we do go back to school. I think it's the better learning environment for everybody involved, even though we are probably getting a little acclimated to this, and, I think we can make this thing work. We already lost our weeks, so, what does it hurt to keep doing this? But if we can come back, if we have the ability to come back, we then have the opportunity to, because we said we're closed only until May 1st. It's likely that during this week or next week, they're going to extend that. And it's going to be an official announcement if they haven't already done it. I don't know. But that's the reason why you're hearing one or the other here. So again, bank on the fact that we're closed till the end of the school year. And I don't want to speak way too far ahead of it, but viruses or viri, I don't really know the point. I think it's viruses. Viruses tend to have the ability to live better in colder environments. So maybe it's not as bad during the summer, but come fall and winter, it may reappear. You're hearing doctors say that. There's a possibility that we come back to this at some point. You never know. That the whole nation or the whole world or whatever goes back to online schooling. So as long as we have the system in place and we practice it, now we'll be prepared next time we go through. So there's a chance that we're closed for the end of the school year. And there's a chance that we're not open, at least not in mass capacity here, come August, September, what have you, or summer school. So just keep that in mind there. We may be closed for longer than you think. May 1st right now is just a placeholder, but we'll likely be closed longer. All right, can you show different ways to solve equation practice problems with segment addition? This is Math 1 based stuff here. So let me just talk really quickly about this because this is all brand new to you guys. We're now hitting geometry, and keep this in mind. We call this thing Math 1 and Math 2 and Math 3, not Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 and geometry and all that, because we integrate a lot of different, like not just topics, but actual whole base subject, core subjects, algebra and geometry are all merged within Math 1. And they're all merged within Math 2. And some statistics along the way for both. I don't think we're going to hit statistics when we're in this year, because we lost like 4 or 5 weeks. And we had a plan to maybe do it at the end of this thing just in case here. But algebra, geometry, and statistics are all hit within Math 1. So this is brand new. So not knowing segment addition is fine here. But here's what the segment addition postulate says. And I'm going to go ahead and shrink my screen here a little bit. 1 second. Segment addition postulate says that if you have some line segment, and a segment just means something that is cut off here, because an actual line in itself, is never ending. It's straight and never ending. That means if I put arrows here, that means it goes left and right forever. But a line segment has truncated an actual finite length, which means erase the arrows right here, and then here in itself is a line segment. The segment addition postulate says that I can add any two collinear segments together, and I can come up with the length of the full thing in the end. So let's say that these points here just represent endpoints of individual portions of segments, and this length is 3, and this length is 5. I can then determine that this entire length is 8, because it's 3 plus 5, but mostly here it's because they are collinear, and collinearity just means all on the same line. So what if instead I had something that went like this, right here, and I had the length of 3 and 5 like that? Maybe the length of this whole thing right here is 8, but the distance from this endpoint to this endpoint is no longer 8, right? So we have to have collinearity when it comes to the segment addition postulate. Keep that in mind. That being said, the question's asking, can you show different ways to solve equation practice of segment addition? Not really. I mean, this whole thing is all talking about if I have endpoints A and B and endpoints B and C here, then the segment length AB plus the segment length BC equals the segment length AC when A, B, and C are collinear points. And that's really the end goal to it. So there aren't really other ways to do the stuff. And I know the numbers aren't as easy as just 3 and 5. I know you have some sort of, thing like this, and you got to add them up and say that it's all equal to, this amount. I get that. I get that there's more to it that you have to do, but you add up this bit with this bit, and it equals this bit, and then you solve for x appropriately, and then you use that x to find a length that you're needing after that. So there's not much more to it than that. Now, you could get more complex problems. There's a possibility that you see a problem that has not just 3 points right there, but a fourth one, so you have 3 segments. You have 3 segments, and you have to add all 3. There's a possibility that you're given a midpoint in between them, and you have to know that these two are set equal to each other. And that was one of the topics we were going to hit. We still might. I don't know yet for sure. Not this week, but we still might do the midpoint in a segment addition postulate scenario, not midpoint on a graph. And let me show you a challenging one here. This is from one of my old videos when I taught geometry back in the Bay Area. I had an example problem, and it's somewhere on my YouTube channel, somewhere, an old thing right here, where you have to find the length of all of BE knowing all this information here. Now here's what you have. You have a line segment right here, a line segment right here, and a line segment right here. You know the length of this segment in terms of x. You know the actual line segment here. You don't know this line segment, and you know the length of all of BD and the length of all of EC, and you got to find the length of BE. There's a lot involved in it. It's a nice challenging question for some of you guys. You can pause this video and try and find a way to come up with it. Let me give you one hint to help you out with this. First of all, let's see, how do I want to say it? First of all, the length of CD can be found by doing the length of BD minus the length of BC. The length of CD can also be found by taking the length of CE and subtracting the length of DE. And you'll find 2 different expressions for CD here. The CD using these 2 sets here, the purple and the red, and then the CD using the green and the blue. And then you can set these 2 equal to each other, solve for x, use that to solve for x, then use that x for all this other stuff. So it's kind of an interesting way to go about the problem there. I'm kind of giving away what you do. It's a harder problem. You're not going to be asked to do it. So if you're asking, is there a different way to solve things? No. Are there different kinds of problems that are going to be asked for it? Depends on how challenging they get, but it's possible they could. But again, segment addition postulate simply says that you can add the lengths, and you're going to learn angle addition postulate next, I think. But but you might have already learned it, but you can add the lengths of segments together and it'll equal the whole segment that you have here, as long as all points are collinear. As long as all segments fall in the same line, all of these little bits can add together to make the whole thing. Something called angle addition postulate says I can add this angle with this angle as long as they are coplanar and as long as they are adjacent to each other, and then it equals the whole thing all added together. Like this is all these two combined makes the whole thing. Kind of interesting. Anyway, I want to get off of that here. I know I'm running my course when it comes to this video, but it is a power hour, so hey, I can go a whole hour long and I'd be totally fine with that myself. All right, so with that one down, let's go ahead to the next question. And the next question says, so I have to isolate most of the y's, or all of them on the left side or right? Now, I think this is one of the applied math questions that trickled in to the Math 1 Q&A, and I don't know how still. I don't know how this was asked. Maybe you're asking based off old information. But Math 1, you guys have already done systems of equations, so you might know what this is all about here. So to answer this question, I have to isolate most of the y's or all of them on the left side or right. You're talking about the substitution method. And the substitution method here states that if you have, I'll go ahead and show an example. I did this with a student yesterday in the applied math Zoom tutoring session. So in this question right here, you have the system written in black. So look at what's written in black, try and ignore everything else. 3x plus y equals 19, 2x plus 2y equals 2. Math 1, you should know how to do this. You got to solve for the points x and y. And I never finished this problem with him because I told him how to get it started, and then he ended up finishing it. But we had to substitute. And in order to substitute, what we need is, I like that they use the word isolate. You have to isolate a variable at the very least, if not multiple variables in the same vein. So I'll show you more that I can do with this problem right here. Again, look at the black, that's the original problem. And in the black, you see this y that's circled in blue. This y is not isolated, but it has a coefficient of 1. It's the fastest variable to get by itself among all 4 variables that you see in both these two things. All I have to do here in green is subtract 3x from both sides. And over here, I rewrote the equation with y now isolated. If I subtract 3x over here, it's gone. And the 19 minus 3x can also be written as negative 3x plus 19. Now I have an expression in terms of y. Y is now isolated, and I can now use that to substitute that into the other equation for y. Negative 3x plus 19 will take y's place. And as I rewrite this black equation right down here, I rewrote it, but instead of y, I rewrote it as negative 3x plus 19. The end goal of this, and you see that I stop here because, again, I wanted the student, I showed him you distribute stuff like that. The student finished it after that, and I can finish it for you here. But the reason why we do this is because now I have one variable in one equation, and it's possible to solve. Before I had 2 variables in one equation, couldn't solve for x or y yet, but I had to isolate a variable to make it happen. So if I continued solving here, I combine like terms, negative 4x. If I subtract 38 over to the other side, I get negative 36. And if I divide negative 4 from both sides, I get x equals positive 9. And I can use that 9 to now solve for y up here, where I can get y equals negative 3 times 9 plus 19. It's negative 27 plus 19, which is negative 8, I do believe. Sorry if that's wrong. I'm doing this pretty fast here. So I get 9 comma negative 8 as my solution. Now, the question that was asked is, now you quoted y's, and I like that you did because you probably just meant variables. Could have I isolated x? Absolutely, I could have. I probably wouldn't have wanted to isolate this one. The reason is because getting x by itself requires that I have to divide by 3 at some point. And I don't want to divide a 1y divided by 3 and a 19 divided by 3, because 1 and 19 aren't divisible by 3. But I could have gotten this x by itself because I could have divided everything by 2. All 2's can divide by 2 here, and that x could have been isolated. That could have helped me to solve for y, use that y to solve for x. Now, the other thing that you said in the question here, let's go back to the question. The other thing that you said was both y's. It said most of the y's or all of them on the left side or right. So I could have, alternatively in this problem, let me just show this last bit. Alternatively, instead of taking this expression and substituting it in for y in the other equation from the onset, if it's possible and easy for me to do so, I could have isolated y in the second equation as well, and it's not too bad to do, because again, just like that x, I could have just divided everything by 2. Divide everything by 2. Sorry, I got that y a little bit erased. I'll go ahead and fix that. Right here, it's going to fix that y. So what if I go ahead now and try and get this y by itself as well? Let's start by subtracting 2x from both sides. Now I have an equation that says 2y equals negative 2x plus 2. By the way, I could put the negative 2x on the end. I could make it 2 minus 2x. This is just y equals mx plus b form. It's kind of something variable term first. It's something I'm very just common with doing. Now if I divide everything by 2 here, it gets this y by itself, and I get an equation that now says y equals negative x plus 1. What I've done was I've gotten y by itself from the bottom equation, a different expression for y, and with this expression, very unique, I can set it equal to this expression right here. I got most of or all the y's isolated, and now I can set these two expressions equal to each other. And you've seen problems, let me kind of put that y next to the other one, because you've seen problems like this before, have you not? You've seen systems of equations where it shows this equation, y equals this, and y equals that, and then you set the two equal to each other. It might be more work, it might be. It might not be as well. Remember, I had to distribute in the previous problem here, and you've seen other equations like this before. I could use it to solve for x, I'm not going to keep going, but once I solve for x, I could plug it into either equation to solve for y pretty easily. So do you have to isolate a variable? It's so strongly recommended that I'm not going to show you what an alternative looks like. Do you have to isolate both y's? No. It's an okay practice. I normally don't do it. It's an okay practice. If one variable is already isolated, I would go for it. Strategically, this y was the best one to isolate. This x or this y is pretty much identical as far as isolating, but if you're going to get both of the same variable isolated, I would go for the y's there, because those were a lot easier to do. So again, that's more of an applied math question. However, if you're in math 1, I don't know if we're doing a final yet. That's actually a question that someone might want to ask at some point. I don't yet know if we're doing a final, but if we are, think of it as being cumulative. Or as you do some review questions sometimes, remember, sometimes you get some review, like in your current set of problems that you have right now, you can see that what you're doing is some review video, equations with variable, I don't know what this says, equations with variables, parentheses, all this stuff. This is old review. And your assessment, your learning assessment has some mixed review stuff. All your tests generally do. And I know there's a question on assessments here later that I'm going to make sure that I get to. But all your tests generally do have some review stuff. So understand that you'll probably have some systems of equation stuff again. So if you watched that, then good on you. It's probably going to help you down the line. Okay, next question here. What math topics will we be seeing to practice more and know and how to make the what? Cliffhanger. Maybe this next question after this is part of the same thing. Probably same student submitted the same thing twice. So what we'll be focusing on for the rest of the school year is what these two questions are entailing. There's a list that we made as Math 1. This is for Math 1. All I can tell you right now is for Math 1. Let me just say on applied math, we're going to get into what are called transformations on the next unit. Quadratic equations on the next unit. That's a Math 2 topic. And transformations, kind of Math 1-ish, but it's used in Math 2 again, and you'll need to know it for Math 2. And Math 1, we're going to do transformations later. So let's see the official list here as far as what you're going to be doing here on out. All these things here at the top are part of your review stuff that you are looking at right now. I don't know if proportions are one of them or slope or anything just yet, but understand that this stuff could be covered. This is an over-exhausting list, meaning we won't hit everything necessarily, but we won't hit more than what's on this list here. This is the stuff you're kind of looking at right now. Not all of them. We haven't done parallel lines yet. I don't know if we'll get to them. We have to get to triangle congruence here in a second. We probably will. So segment length is what we did right now. Angle measure. Angles formed by intersecting lines, where we name the angles and we, I don't know if we said if they're obtuse or acute or anything like that. We haven't done midpoints or bisectors yet. We haven't done transversals and parallel lines yet. So we'll see if we get to those next week. And then triangle congruence comes up. So basically, this is all geometry. This is, like I said, Math 1 hits algebra, which we've done a lot of, Algebra 1, and geometry. And then statistics, but I don't think we'll get there. Here's the transformation stuff. Applied math, you're going to be hitting transformations as well, coming in the final unit if we get all the way there. I sure hope we do. Math 1 will for sure be getting here. I don't know how basic or advanced we'll get. This stuff here is what we were working on before we closed down. Remember, this is Math 1. Remember 1 grain of rice? Remember that story? This is what we were doing there. We might come back to it just as a small bit of like saying, you're going to be using it in later math. you're going to be using in later math, but probably more math 3 than math 2. So maybe we talk about it, function notation, things like that, and we make sure you're familiar. It depends. It depends on how fast and rigorous we go. We're still planning it out. And the last one, the last stuff here is statistics. I don't think we're going to get to this. But this, you can pause it at any point right here. This is the whole list here of what we'll cover at most, but at least, well, I don't know what at least, but at most, this is what we'll be covering. So nothing more than this. So just keep that in mind. That's math 1. That was a math 1 question. So there it is. The next question here, when you're in Khan Academy and don't sign in, will you lose your progress? You know, I don't know for sure. The best bet I can tell you right now is make sure you're signed in. And make sure you're signed in through Portal. And make sure you're signed into your EGUSD account. If all of those are synced up the proper way through me, then there won't be trouble. And that's what my welcome back video really stressed. That was the main reason I wanted you to watch that video. Make sure everything you do is through Portal. Make sure everything you do, you're signed in. Through EGUSD. Make sure. Now, I don't know how the question's being asked. Are you asking that if you start doing problems without being signed in, and then you sign in, does that retroactively go back and say you did those problems? Again, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't have a student account to check that. It's probably something I should have checked before this video. You can try it. Maybe someone else can answer it for me, but I wouldn't bank on it. You might lose your progress doing that, okay? So keep that in mind. And then I don't know if the question's also being asked in this way here. What other way was I thinking about this? Your Khan Academy and you don't sign in. Maybe you're asking me, will I be able to track you if you're not signed in? And the answer there is no. So if you, no, maybe you're asking this. If you're not signed in and you work on something, and then you close out and you turn off your computer and you go back the next day, even if you're not signed in, will it still know that your computer, that your IP address, that your temporary cookies have done those previous problems? You can go back and you wouldn't have to take a picture to show records of things, something like that. That I wouldn't count on. I wouldn't count on that. So if you did some problems and you weren't signed in and you want to receive credit for it, now don't get me wrong, I'd rather that you just redid them. I don't think they're long problems. And once you know, once you've learned how to do it, doing 4 more problems I don't think is that much. In fact, yesterday I went and did all the Khan Academy things for Math 1. And this isn't a boasting thing, but it took me 8 minutes. I mean, that's me doing it mentally and going, I can go at a pretty rapid pace there. I know the stuff. But that's my point. If you know the stuff, you can go back and it should be kind of fast. So if you don't sign in when you do some problems and you want to receive credit for the work, you have one of 2 options. Document it somehow and show it to me. Like take a photo, screen cap, whatever it is, email it to me, text me. Or sign in and redo the problems. Because I can't guarantee the answer to your question here, will you lose your progress? That's why I'm stressing that you make sure that you're signed in and you do it all through Portal, okay? And by through Portal, I mean that either you click on Khan Academy that way, or you click on the links when you went to Google Classroom by having signed in through Portal. Now, that's not a guarantee either, because someone else had this issue. And the issue really is that if you're signed into Google, like in the very top right, when you first open up Google Chrome, you'll see a little icon there. I have this trouble a lot too. I have a personal Google thing and then a school Google thing. But a lot of times I'm in my personal one, even though I'm signed into my EGUSD portal, and then I go to Google Drive, it's going to go to my personal one because I'm signed into Google and it's synced to my personal stuff. So if you want your own, if you're not on a Chromebook, you're on your own laptop, and you want your own EGUSD Google login, you want to create one. That's on the very top right of your Google Chrome screen. I'm talking about Google Chrome. Very top right of your Google Chrome screen, and you can create one for yourself. And it gives you a brand new set of everything. New history, new cookies, new password remembering, new searches, everything like that. Everything's brand new, but now it's all synced through that login through your EGUSD. That's the safest bet possible. And that's what I'm doing now on my screen these days, now that we're doing online. Otherwise, I'm going to screw up a lot. Okay, next question here. Hi, Mr. Robinson. I have a question. I finished my homework. I turned into you. I don't know it's come for you. Well, I certainly hope homework's not coming for me. It's coming for me. But, so you finish your homework. Do you have to report anything to me? And again, this question's been asked a couple times before, and make sure that you check that old Q&A video as well in case I don't cover everything here. The answer is no. You don't have to turn anything into me. If you finish your IXL or your Khan Academy or whatever's required of you, and you've done it to the fullest of your ability that you think you're supposed to, smart score of 80. I'll talk about how Khan Academy's completed as well, trying to remind myself of that, or at least for full credit. No, you don't have to do anything for me. As long as you're synced and logged in properly and I can see all that stuff, I can see all of that on my end. I can see which problems you've done, what things you've looked at, what your specific problems were, everything like that. So you don't have to tell me anything. Now, if you are, because I can't do it from my teacher side, but if you are on Google Classroom, for every assignment, notice how these are green? I can't turn them gray myself because, again, I'm teacher. But if you click on here and you go to View Assignment, you'll have an option over here that will say Mark as Done or Submit or something like that. That's not for me. And this is in the week 0 video. I actually show how you do it from a student account. That's not for me. I couldn't care less if you turned it in or not. In fact, if I go back to here, it says 3 have turned in, which means they marked it as done, and that's 3 out of 21. That doesn't mean only 3 out of 21 people did this assignment. And remember, videos aren't required. But 3 out of 21, they're probably doing it for themselves, either to cover themselves, thinking they had to do it for me, or when you mark it as done, this icon becomes gray. That makes a checklist for you guys. That says which things you have, which items you've completed and which ones you haven't. Especially if you're doing it on multiple days. That way you know what you have to go back to. So if you mark it as done yourself, it becomes a check item for you that says you don't have to go back to it. So I recommend that you do that. I do. And look, you don't have to watch the videos, but if you complete the practice thing below the video, you might as well check off the video with it as well and say mark it as done. So you don't have to submit anything to me. Come Tuesday, I'm going to start grading this stuff. And then what I'm going to do is go into IXL, and I can see everyone's name and everyone's details. I can see when you logged on for what time. It's a little much. I have a lot of access. Okay, I have a lot of access. You don't have to submit anything for me. Just make sure you're logged in. All right, next question is, when is a meeting Zoom? So as far as pre-scheduled Zoom meetings, I will always be in a Math 1 Zoom meeting from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. every school day. That means no weekends or holidays as a pre-scheduled set. And I will always be in the Math. Now, I answered this in week 0 as well, by the way. There will be Applied Math Zoom meetings every school day from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. as scheduled. There are some other things I've added to that in that other video. Again, I do want you to go back to the video to see all the details because I don't want to cover it all in full again. But there are possibilities that I'm on there longer, either extended past that time because students are already in, or because someone requested to start a Zoom with me, and it can be outside of school hours. They requested to start a Zoom thing with me, and I accommodated them. Maybe you guys do it as a large group with me, so it's possible. We'll figure that out. But as far as finding me, every school day from 11 to 12 for Math 1 and 1 to 2 for Applied Math. Now, if I go back to our website here, this is, again, why I recommend that you go to classwork and not stream. This is easily laid out. Zoom is also considered tutoring. You can see this right here, plain as day. I'm not going to delete this item ever. I'm not going to renew it either. It's just going to say this. This is for Math 1, daily Zoom sessions, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's going to be 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. If you want to find out how to get in, click on this, and you get a lot more information right here. There's a direct link to go into Zoom stuff. If I click on that, it brings me to a new page here where it lets me open a Zoom meeting. If I already have the app, then it'll just open the app for me. I don't know how it works with Chromebooks. I couldn't tell you. I've tried this from a phone. It works from a phone. You have to, I think, download the app that way, which I did download. I tested it, and it works. Some people have had trouble with these things that were called... it's for internal servers only or something. I don't know what that means. I've given access to anyone, including personal emails and stuff. Anyone can join in on my Zooms. You just got to know the meeting ID or the link, and the password is lowercase math1, no space, for the Math 1 meeting, and lowercase applied, APPLIED, for the applied ones. It's a different link. It's a different ID for applied, but that's what it looks like. Again, go to classwork, and you'll see a very neat layout of everything you have. By the way, how-tos on the bottom, how to IXL, how to Zoom, how to Con. These 2 are videos. Those should help you out as well. Okay, so hopefully that kind of resolves that question there. What's being asked? Next question is, can you see our scores in IXL? Yes, I can. I can see, once again, I can see how many questions you've attempted. I can see the questions, and I can see the smart score. Once you've hit 80 or 82 or whatever and you want to stop, you can. If you want to go up to 90 for showing that you're very skilled in it, or 100 for absolute mastery, then you may. You absolutely may. But I can see your scores. I can see every single one that you've done. When you get it, well, as long as you're logged in, remember that. All right, next question. When you get a problem like finding the midpoint, do you have a specific way or method to solve it? Well, Khan Academy takes care of that a little bit. He's covered the formula, and I'll go back and write down that formula for you. And I know on one of my geometry videos, I also have said formula. It's kind of like this here. The midpoint, it's not a formula like an equation. It's not an equation. It shows how you get your coordinate pairs. Let's say you have some point on a graph that's x1, y1, and you have some point on a graph that's x2, y2. And it might not be actually drawn on a graph. It might just be displayed. And you want to find out where that midpoint is. Let's say it's around here. I don't know where it is exactly, but it's probably close to there. Then what you do is you actually, to find the midpoint of any two numbers, and it's got to be any two that I'm talking about this, to find the midpoint of any two numbers, meaning the point that's exactly between your x's and exactly between your y's as far as distance goes, you average your two midpoint values. So if I average my x values, I add them up and divide by 2, then I'll get my x midpoint coordinate. And if I average my y values by adding those up and dividing them by 2, I'll get my y midpoint coordinate value. And these two together will give you the actual midpoint in itself. So average your x value, average your y value. So let's say I actually did it for this problem here. This isn't just x1, y1. Because it's an actual graph, these are actual numbers. Let's assume the scale has increments of 1 everywhere. So let's try this problem, and then I'll show you other ways that you can do this, especially if you're given a drawing. Especially if you're given a drawing, or if you want to draw it. So this point here is -5, 3. And this point here is, I think, 7, -5. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to average my x values, -5 and 7. So averaging -5 and 7 means I add those two together to divide it by 2. And that becomes -2 divided by 2, which is -1. -5 plus 7 is positive. What did I just say? -5 plus 7 is +2 divided by 2, which is +1. 1 is not only the midpoint between -5 and 7, but it's the average of the numbers, -5 and 7. And that falls in line pretty well there. Averaging the y values right here, I have to, finding the midpoint of the y values, I have to average them. 3 plus -5, or 3 minus 5, all divided by 2 right there. 3 plus -5 is -2. -2 divided by 2 is -1. So I was actually correct when I did this drawing. It was a rough estimation here, but 1, -1 ends up being the midpoint for those two guys right there. So that one actually panned out to be the midpoint. So that's the way that the Khan Academy video, I think, mostly shows it, and I think they show a graph with it. Now keep in mind, they do not have to give you the graph to mention the midpoint, and most of the time, though, although they give you the graph, they also even give you a segment, which is actually kind of nice as well, because I like the segments to really show you a slope. And if you know how slopes go, the whole thing regarding slopes is you get to count a whole thing on rise and run. And what I drew in green here, it's very roughed out. Here's another way you can find a midpoint. If you don't know the actual point that's in between right here, and they're asking you to find it, one other way you can do it besides averaging is find the distance between the x values here. So from -5 to 7, from -5, because you have to do this for finding the distance for this line right here. You're asked to do that as well in Pythagorean theorem. It's kind of a right triangle Pythagorean theorem thing. Find out how far you go from -5 to 7. You can count it out if you have a graph, but you can also say like, oh, it's 5 away from 0, and then 7 away from 0. 5 plus 7 is 12, right? So this is 12. That whole distance is 12. And going down from here to here, from 3 to -5, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 3 away, and then 5 away, right? That's 8. So that whole slope, it's a run of 12 and a fall of 8, whatever. But the idea is the midpoint is going to be half of this distance. If you go a full distance of 12 to get to the other point, then go half the distance of 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to get the x coordinate for the, this isn't the midpoint itself, this is how far you travel on x to get to your midpoint there. And if you normally go down 8 to get to the other point in full, let's go down half of 8 now, which is 4 from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. So over 6 and down 4, and you can find that same midpoint right there of 1, -1. So it's possible to do it in kind of a different way there, where you're not averaging values, but you're taking half of your slope values and you're going halfway to get there, right? I think that kind of makes sense. Like, oh, I want to go halfway for a mile, so I take half of a mile to do it. You know, you're taking half the distances that you go to kind of make that happen. That's another way to get the midpoint. Now, as far as the stuff in general, again, sometimes you're not given the actual point, the values in itself. Excuse me, you're not given the graph. So if you're only given the values, let's say you had a point that was 2, 3, and you had a point that was -9, -5, like that. Okay, and you want to find the midpoint between points A and B right there. If you don't want to be stuck to a formula, I would recommend, here's an adage that I say, when in doubt, draw it out. I would just, and you don't have to draw a very detailed graph. Watch this. I'm going to go very rough sketch here on a graph. Here are my axes. That's very rough. And I'm going to be plotting the points. Oh, here's 2, 3. That's point A. That's at 2, 3. And here's -9, -5. That's that point B, -9, -5. And we need to figure out now what that midpoint is. Now, if you do that half the distance thing, instead of the average, this is where I do half the distance, you can just figure out what's the distance from A to B horizontally and what's the distance from A to B vertically. And again, there's no counting now because I don't have increments here. So kind of do what I said last time. If this is 2, 3, and this is -9, -5, I have to go from 2 to -9. So that means this distance here is 2, and this distance here is 9. 2 plus 9 is 11. Half of 11 is, 5.5, things like that. So you can go 5.5 over, because you've seen half points on here, on your stuff. Go 5.5 away from 2. 5.5 away from 2 is -3.5. And then I go down from 3 all the way down to -5. Here's 3 down to 0. Here's 5 down to -5. That whole distance is 8. Half of 8 is 4. So I go down 4 from 3, and I'm at -1. So that point's -3.5, -1 right there. It's a different way. I'm not averaging. Averaging was probably faster for that, but it depends on what you're doing. But that's kind of a when in doubt, draw it out scenario using slopes to make it happen. That is a different way. That's kind of what I did a few times. Let me do one more problem here because you were also given the midpoint a couple times as well. Let's say instead you're given the midpoint. You have point A is at -1, 6, and then you know that your midpoint, the M, is at 0, 2, like that. And you need to find where point B is. This is when, because the formula gets a little harder, you saw that I linked you to a video where I did that formula, and then I think I showed it on the graph after, on another graph, if you look at that video. But here's where I actually used the graph really well to my advantage, and I just kind of went on slope. Let me get a better drawing of this graph stuff here first, though. So if I do -1, 6, like this guy right here, and 0, 2, remember, here's the endpoint, here's the midpoint. I need to find B. And I know that B is somewhere over here. And again, there's no exact drawings right here for this thing. So B is just it's kind of over there. Now, instead of using the formula, how can I find it really fast? I use my slope. I use my slope to go from point A to the midpoint. And I find out how far did I have to go from -1, 6 to 0, 2. On Y, I go from 6 to 2, so I went down 4. And then from -1 to 0, I went over 1. That's halfway to B. So how do I find B now? I go down another 4 and I go over another 1. Another slope triangle from there. Down 4 and over 1. Down 4 from 2 is -2. That's on Y. And over 1 from 0 is 1. So B's endpoint right there is at 1, -2. And I really recommend that you draw those ones out, or that's how you use the drawings to help you, not just as a formula. That's kind of my strongest recommendation for a problem like that. And again, this is all brand new for you guys, so I'm really giving you all the alternatives that I would have generally given you in class. So that's why I want to make sure I'm covering them right here, because Khan Academy doesn't, for good reason. He makes short videos. He wants to make sure it's clear cut and to the point. He has an approach for his example problems you have, although he didn't give you an example with giving you the midpoint, so I wanted to make sure I did that for you. And again, if you don't have the drawings, when in doubt, draw it out. All right, how is the test going to be like? Now, I don't know what test you're talking about. If it's just for this week's of unit stuff, it is the week 1 distance learning assessment. You know, there's a way that teachers can kind of hide giving a test to you, and that's by calling it an assessment or an evaluation. If without saying test or quiz, you might not know that it's a test or quiz. Now that also can probably explain why some people did this thing first, not realizing that this is actually an actual test. Now, when you click on this thing, right, this is true for Math 1 and Applied Math. But when I click on this guy right here, yes, there's a Google Forms. You can click on it, but please read everything before you click on something, okay? This says finish everything else first and follow the form. You only get one shot at it. Make sure you do all the assignments first before to review. Now, if you accidentally did it first, guys, I'm going to clear some of you guys here. Some people did it properly after they've done the stuff, and after I've corrected the issues on the test. If you read today's daily bulletin, I talk about the fact that back to the assessment, there were a few bugs in the blank submissions. If you had those problems and submitted it the first or second day, I'm going to have you kind of redo it because there were issues on my end, and I don't want you to get penalized for that. So I'll make sure to give I'll inform you that you got to redo your test. I'll give you the answers that you gave yourself before so you can redo most of them, and then I'll tell you which ones you'll need to correct because there were issues on my end. But again, these are your tests. At the end of every week, you're going to be given week's test, but it's called an assessment. It goes in test scoring though. That's what I'm saying. You get one shot at it, make it count. Make sure you know how to do these other things, write everything down, get good practice on it, make sure you do the review. These are your tests. So how's the test going to be like? Go ahead and check it out. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead, 4th period student. Sorry to whoever this is. Sorry, Donovan. I'm just going to type the stuff in. I'm not going to take the test for you, but here's what your test looks like. It's this math one. It's these 8 questions right here. One's multiple choice, the rest are, filling some things out, and make sure that you kind of do it on one shot. You can use any notes, you can use any video for support. Please do not, and listen, I shouldn't even be saying it because it's probably going to influence some of you guys. Do not use any sort of apps that can assist you in answering these questions. And you know what I'm talking about. Math 1 knows what I'm talking about because we had a take-home quiz that talked about that same kind of thing. Don't do that because some people aren't in the belief that we should be having this schooling the way that it is, or we shouldn't be cramming as much as we do. But here's the thing. It's necessary for the next math class you go to. You passing this class with an A, B, or C says that you're probably ready for Math 2. And I want to make sure you're ready for Math 2. Don't cheat yourselves into going into Math 2 and suddenly saying, uh-oh, I didn't actually learn how to properly do this, because it's going to screw you over. Don't make that happen for yourselves. Same with Applied Math. You want to get into Math 2? Pass this class the right way. Make sure you're doing it with decency and honor, and in a way that you'll be ready to do it when the time's right, and you have to do it away without use of any other aids that you're not supposed to be using. Okay. All right, here we go. The next question. Will the open circles ever apply to these types of problems? Now, I think you're talking about the segment stuff here. So if we go to a, and I kind of like the question. Let me go here. I kind of like the question because, you guys see these segments and you might be thinking of these kind of as number lines. You know when we did number lines and we did inequalities? Let me actually draw a number line for you. I'm not going to have very detailed, but say that you found out in an answer, oh, x is greater than 7. And then you said, here's 0, and here's 7, and here's an open circle on 7, and then here's x going here. And you're asking, do we have to draw these open circles ever? Or here, I'll do you one better. Let's say it says x is between -1 and 7, like this. So instead, because now I'm going to make it a segment instead of what's called a ray. You're going to hear the word ray more in geometry when you do more geometry stuff. But say here's -1, closed circle, and here's 7, open circle, and there's a length with a segment. There's a segment with a length of 8, right? That whole distance it's essentially 8, even though it's an open circle there. Will you have to use open circles in problems like these? I appreciate the question because I understand the idea there that you might be confused how one associates with the other, but it's a bit of a misnomer because they're not actually the same thing. When we're doing these things right here, we're showing on a number line for all real numbers right here what values of x are solutions to an equation that you may have had, to an inequality situation that you may have had. We're solving for x and we're representing all the numbers that x can be. That's why this thing is drawn the way it is. This segment is not a set of solutions. This is a physical property. This is some sort of line thing that exists in real life somewhere to represent some length, or is actually, it could be whatever here. And these are just lengths that you have. These points are just showing you the endpoints of the actual segments we're referring to. Segment BC has a length of 3x plus 47, whatever it actually is. CD has this length, DE has this length. Open circles don't apply here because it's not about what solutions you have for x in an inequality fashion. So will open circles ever apply to these types of problems? No. They don't have to do with what we're doing here. It's not the same kind of thing as number line, drawing arrows, solutions, inequalities. That's not what this is. Granted, you got to solve for x, to say x is 2, you plug x in to get this whole length there, but that solution is really just to get a length. It's not to tell you what the solutions for x all represent in a bigger, broader way for inequalities. So open circles, no, they're not applying. That's not actually a part of it there. But thanks for asking, and I can see why people would be confused on it, and I hope that that helped you there. Okay, next two questions look like they're kind of the same, probably the same submission. Are we gonna have any tests during online classes? Again, I just answered that. Yes, your weekly distance learning assessment is that test. It goes into a test portion. All your other stuff before is homework based. So keep that in mind. Yes, those are your tests in a way. Do them last. Hold off till the very end. Make sure you ask me any questions. Not on your test itself, but as you prep for the test or as you do these kinds of things. Hopefully this is helping. I think I asked this question before, but what is the Zoom time phrase? Again, I already answered that one, but Math 1, it's 11 to noon every school day. Applied Math, it's 1 to 2 p.m. every school day. Okay, that's as quick as I'm going to answer that. What do we have to do on Khan Academy? So I'll try and get into Khan Academy right now and show you my teacher side of things and show you what I've assigned. But what I assigned is the equivalent of what is in Google Classroom. Now, if you're in Applied Math, you don't have Khan Academy assignments right now. You only have IXL. For Math 1, all your things this time are Khan Academy. You have optional IXL, and I'll get into that in a bit because I know questions on it. But what you have to do are these things. Now, the videos are not a requirement for you to do, and there's no way to, well, I guess there's a way to check and see that you did the video, but I want to make sure that you've accounted for the fact that if you already know how to do it, or if you felt like you fast forward enough or cut it off short once you learned what to do, that you're ready to move on to the next thing. I don't want to kill your time on this thing and make you spend so long on this if you don't have to. And that's how most teachers are kind of approaching it. Same with Applied Math. I gave you guys YouTube videos, they're my YouTube videos. You're not required to watch them. You watch as much as you think you have to. So if you feel like you understood this video whether or not you watched it, you can do the practice right below it that associates with the video. Remember, this has to do with this. If there's practice below a video, it means it has to do with it. So this video on angle introduction, naming angles and estimating angle measures, I believe have that information in the video. And if they don't, that's kind of my apologies or Khan's apologies, if you will. And check mark what's done for yourself. You know, you click mark is done within the assignment, mark is done, and then you'll be kind of set in that form. Now, what do you have to do? You have to do the practice ones. You have to do the practice ones here. Even the review ones, KA review practice, that's a mixed review of old stuff. Do you have to watch the videos? No. And keep that in mind. Same with IXL for Applied Math. You don't have to watch the YouTube videos that I gave you, and they're ordered in the same way. Please go to classwork to find the order of your stuff. Now, if I go to Khan Academy right now, and I hope I'm logged in properly when I do this, but when I go to Khan Academy, so good, I will be logged in properly. I forget where I have to go here. I might have to go to my teacher dashboard. I got a notification. Someone probably got themselves logged in. So if I go to teacher dashboard, this might be wrong. I'll have to find out where to go officially. Oh, this is my teacher dashboard. If I go to 5th period math here, sure, update the list. I can go personally to assignments, and if I click on manage, I'll be able to see all the things that I've assigned to you guys right here. And you can see right now, this is kind of a cheat sheet thing. It doesn't show individual students, but it shows who's completed things. And for the majority of it, most of you guys are probably holding off till the end, like till Monday, which is fine. Just make sure that you're on top of it. But you guys, if you go to your, I think to your learner home, and that's why it's kind of harder, but to your learner home, try and find, I forget where we found it. I found it with the student. I remember some people found it in their notifications bar, what was assigned. So you can find what's assigned that way and do the same thing like that. But you don't have to do the videos. You have to do the exercises. You have to do exercises, not videos. And then you see when it's assigned. And I think if I zoomed out more somewhere, I think it says when it's due. I don't know specifically where. Oh, due date, Tuesday at 8 a.m. There you go. So that's when they're due. This is when they were assigned. You'll see a new set. Hopefully we don't do all Khan Academy. Hopefully some's IXL. But that's kind of your set right there. But this is where you can go here because there are direct links to those parts. Naming angles, you click on this, you'll go straight to the naming angles practice. Okay, straight to the naming angles practice right here. All right, so that's kind of what that's looking like for you, and your problems are unique maybe every time you go on, because I know last time I did these, I don't think I saw this stuff right here. So it just varies based on what you have there. All right, so that's a good question. That's how you do that. Oh, next question's pretty nice here. How do you name angles? Well, if I go back to that previous problem that we just saw here, an angle is named, and I'll show you kind of two conventions, but there's one that's more important than another. That's kind of pertinent here. But naming angles is based on three things. There is an endpoint. Let's see, where is it? Here, let me go back to me, and then I'll kind of talk about it. Your naming angles is based on three letters. Some endpoint that is on an arm of some sort of line segment, or ray, okay? And you'll normally see that letter, that identified as a letter. The letter that represents your vertex, where the angle is actually made, that point is called a vertex. And then an endpoint on another arm that helps form and make that angle. So let's say that this is my angle right here, this blue bit, these two blue pens. Say that there is a dot on this blue pen right here, and it says A. There's a dot on the vertex, or maybe not a dot, but on the vertex is B, and this endpoint here is C. Then you can name this angle in two ways, kind of a third, and I'll talk about that. But you can name this angle in two ways. You can either call it, you have to call it by an endpoint, the vertex in the middle, and the other endpoint that makes the angle. So you can either call this angle ABC, or you can call it angle CBA. You cannot call it angle BCA. You cannot call it angle ACB. B cannot be on an end. If B is the vertex, B is in the middle. So you can either call it angle ABC, or you can call it angle CBA. You could also sometimes call it just angle B. Now, the only time you could call it angle B is if it's the only angle that exists in your diagram. So if this is the only angle that exists here, I'm going to call it angle B. And angle B is identified by the concave angle that's formed from it, not the convex angle. So this big guy, this convex angle, wouldn't be called angle B. It would be the concave angle right here. Same with an obtuse angle such as this one. If I just called it angle B or angle ABC, whatever, it's by the concave angle, not the convex one. How do we name convex angles? We don't often name convex angles. We have to kind of name it in some other form. It's generally not, we generally go from 0 to 180 when it comes to angles of that sort. We might measure convex angles, but we have to talk about it in a different form there. Now, if I go back to this picture right here, when it talks about, naming angles and such, for instance, I couldn't see this angle, this thing with this P right here. I couldn't call this purple one right here just angle P. I couldn't just call this angle P because I don't know what angle P actually represents. It could be this purple. It could be this reddish one. It could be this bluish one. It could be this white one without an angle. It could be all of this right here, the whole 180. I don't know what it is. That's why we use three letters to name our angles most of the time. And they don't have to be alphabetical. So if I wanted to name the purple one, I'd either call it angle DPB, because I can see those endpoints to help, or I can call it angle BPD. I use the arms, the endpoints, or the, points that are on the arms to help form the angle B, P, D, and the P is there in the middle. Now this question here is which angle refers to the same angle as angle EDC. I'm looking at angle ED, and then it goes down to C right here. Just so you know, angle EDC is the same thing as angle EDP, because P is a point that's on the same arm as C is. So angle EDP, angle EDC make this same green angle right here. And that's the one we're looking for right there. That would be the correct answer on that one, right? So that's that answer there. I could have also called this angle PDE or angle CDE. And I can't just call it angle D because D again could have been this one or that one as well. So generally use three letters. The vertex is in the middle and then the other ones are on the other sides there. All right, I'm running out of time here in my power hour, so I'm just going to keep jumping. I have a few more things to answer. Let's just keep going. How do you know when to substitute or eliminate when solving for linear systems? This is more an applied math question again, and I wish I prepped something for this one to kind of be ready, so let me just kind of say it out loud. I do have it written down. Let me go to an applied math class here, third period, and let me find the assignment. I think it's this one, solving a system of equations using any method. I want you to read this thing along with me if you have applied math. Any method here. I said this, use substitution if you have at least one variable isolated in one or both equations. So if you have an equation, if you have a system and one of your equations already says y equals or x equals something, I would use substitution. If both equations say y equals this, y equals that, I would use substitution. I'd use elimination if your equation's written in standard form. Standard form looks like the previous problems. I'm going to go ahead and pull one up for you here. Standard form looks like the problems like this one that was written in black very early on. 3x plus y equals 19, 2x plus 2y equals 2. No variables isolated. X and y are on the same side of the equation there. Sometimes they have coefficients in front like this. Standard form, most often I'd use elimination. We solved this one using substitution, and you were required to when it was all that you could learn because you had to get it by itself. But here, once you learn elimination, it's probably easier to do elimination with a problem like this once you're there. Some people still swear by substitution, and that's totally fine. If you're forced to use substitution, I guess you use it for forced to use elimination. But substitution I generally use if you already have isolated variables, such as these ones. And I generally use elimination if I have standard form like this one that was originally written in black. Generally. And that's kind of how I'm going to answer that one. I think that mostly takes care of it, and the assignment also says that one there. All right, good. That one's down there. And again, that was more applied math. The next question is why is the math in this thing so confusing? I would generally say, well, look, keep this in mind. You haven't learned this yet, and the first time you're learning it is through Khan Academy. And a lot of it is he's giving you the name segments, and he's saying endpoints and all these different things. I don't know if he's used the word congruent yet, but all these words are new. Geometry, it's a brand new core subject, so you haven't learned it yet. I mean, you're learning it now, but it's new. So we haven't done it in class. We didn't write out learning targets and success criteria. I didn't break it down with you one bit at a time with definitions and small examples along the way. You were jumped right into it. That's one reason why it's going to be so confusing, I would say. It's because it's new for you, and you're learning distance learning at the same time and stuff. I understand that this can be a lot. And look, I have sympathy for you. I do. If this is my first time learning it, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for a lot of people here. Keep that in mind. Now, another reason why it could be confusing here, and you can ask maybe some seniors, if you know some seniors at Laguna Creek, ask them, what did you like more, algebra or geometry? Or what was easier for you, algebra or geometry? Almost everyone has an answer. It's a very polarizing set of course subjects here. I liked algebra more because blah, 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 blah. I liked geometry more because blah, 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 blah. And I know a lot of people aren't going to say they like geometry more yet if more geometry is like this, but I'll tell you what, geometry is a lot more visual. And if you're a visual learner, you might end up liking geometry more. Okay? Geometry is a lot more visual, and if you're a visual learner, you might like geometry a lot more. Now, we're doing some algebra with this. Remember, with the segments, we still have to solve for x. So keep in mind, there's still algebra involved. You just got to use kind of a theorem or a conjecture or something to do it, the segment addition postulate. You got to use that to then make your equation, and then you solve for x and substitute. So now keep in mind here, it's probably confusing because it's a brand new core subject, and you might end up being one of the people that like algebra more than geometry. If I were to answer, do I like algebra or geometry more? I'd say I like algebra more. I'm not necessarily a visual learner. I mean, I can be, I'm a whatever learner, but I probably liked algebra more, but keep in mind, there's a lot of visuals in geometry, and you might end up liking that one more. So just remember, though, this is brand new, all right? There was someone also who would ask me, I don't remember this stuff. It's new. So, yeah, you're not going to remember it. This is new. All right, 4 more questions. Next question here. Can the optional math work be extra credit? Now, this is being asked for my Math 1 class here because I don't have optional work to do for applied. So let me go back here. So what's being asked is there's the IXL stuff underneath work 1 where it says extra practice. So week 1, here's your required stuff, and week 1 extra practice optional is IXL. And they're saying, hey, if we do these and get a SMART score of 80, can it be extra credit? Can it be extra credit? For the sake of equity with the other Math 1 classes, the answer is likely no. And I likely wouldn't give extra credit. It would probably be the additional credit thing, meaning you wouldn't get 10 out of 0, like an extra plus 10. You would get an extra 10 out of 10. You know what I mean? So it's like 100%. It's not like just jumping percent, though. And you've seen me do that before when things were optional. But because they're stressing and forcing equity here, I'm definitely going to say no on that. And that one's out of my control. But here's what I'll do. If you are having trouble Not with answering questions on Khan Academy. If you currently are having syncing issues and login and connection issues with Khan Academy, and you can't get that practice in, you can use the IXL ones as alternatives if they line up with the same kind of stuff. So if I had trouble doing IXL early on, and you had stuff on midpoint formula, and you have to kind of prove and show to me you couldn't do the Khan Academy, you have to explain it, you can do the IXL stuff here. Okay. Now for IXL, I want you guys to understand this, and I think I'm writing it right here. I do not include the links anymore right here. You have to go to your portal and click on IXL Math. It's one, and then you got to type in, you got to type in either the B.7 code or the 2YG code, or type midpoint formula, whatever, to find it in the search. The reason I'm making you do this is because I want to guarantee, excuse me, that's I have only a few more minutes to get onto Zoom here for Math 1. What was I saying? Because I want to ensure that you get logged in. When you click on IXL Math through Portal, it will ensure your login here. Like for me, it says, welcome, Brandon Robinson now. People clicked on the link before, and they either didn't get logged in, or they got logged in their personal account, not their school account. Some people did. So I want to make sure that that's not happening to you. So I want to make sure that you're doing that. What was my thing called here? B.7. So if I type B.7 right here, it's going to bring me, looks like that didn't bring me to midpoint formula, at least not exactly. There it is, find the midpoint. That's why they also have this other thing here called the, it's like a key code, 2YG. If I type 2YG right here, that'll also bring me there. And I think I brought their midpoint formula, find the midpoint. So you can use these, get a smart score of 80 that way to kind of make that one happen. And then you'd be set to kind of bring that one up now, smart score of 10. Can't really see it, smart score of 10, things like that. So get it up to 80, you'd be good. By the way, and I don't know if this question's asked yet, but some people have asked how you get 100% on Khan Academy. I think it's a 4 out of 7 rule. Meaning every section, most sections only have 4 questions. Some actually have 7. But the 4 out of 7 rule says 4 out of 7 is about 57%. So if you get under 57% as a score for your stuff, then you didn't get full credit for it. So if you only get 2 out of 4 on a section, you're not going to receive full credit. If you get 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4, you'll receive full credit. If you get 4, 5, 6, or 7 out of 7, then you'll get full credit like that. So I think the 4 out of 7 rule is going to apply. Smart score of 80 for IXL, 4 out of 7 for Khan Academy. All right, I got to finish this thing. My power hour has gone past. How do I join your class in Khan Academy? I don't want to say send it out an email because your emails cannot access external sources. So Khan Academy can't actually send you an email. But I gave you an invite so that it officially got your EGUSD IDs ready with me. And it's kind of hard to do all of this stuff here. I don't remember all the things verbatim. So I'm going to go here and show you, if you scroll down to how to Khan, I give you a bullet point stuff and what to do. And it basically says, go to Khan Academy through your student portal. Sign in, if it doesn't sign you in automatically, sign in using Google. Sign in through Gmail or Google or whatever. Don't type your EGUSD email. Don't type it in. Always hit the sign in using Google thing. I don't know why, but it's a little bit different. Somehow it syncs things up with the portal properly when you do that. So make sure you do that. And once you're activated, sometimes I have to update my list. And once I update my list, you'll be in. You'll be in and you'll be synced up. If you have syncing troubles, you do all the Khan Academy stuff, you say, Mr. Robinson, I did it all, it didn't show up. Thank you for doing that effort, but you might have to do the IXL stuff in place optionally here. Now, if you're in applied math, you don't have to worry about Khan Academy just yet. I'm mostly focused on IXL with you because I'm the only teacher at Laguna Creek that does applied math, and so I don't have to be equitable, and we've been doing IXL all year. So that's kind of my thing there. So keep that in mind there. That's how you join the class. At least look at that bullet point stuff to see it. All right, how do I see what assignments are posted? Once again, make sure that when you go to Google Classroom, now remember, I update every Tuesday. So Tuesday at 6 a.m., you're going to see the brand new week of stuff. So you see it for the full week. But make sure that, once again, when you log in to Google Classroom, find my class, and don't look at the stream, guys. This is a lot of stuff, and it's out of order, and it's not with topic-based things. Don't go here, please. Go to classwork. Find your week. This is week 1. Here's the date range. You'll know what week you're in based on the date range here. And then go ahead and see the list. Work from the top down. Only do what's required. You'll know because videos aren't required and the practice things are like that there. But how do you see what assignments are posted? they're here within the week. Go from the top down there. Make sure you go to classwork to do it, please. Please make sure you do it that way so you're not doing things out of order or you can't find certain things when I'm asking you to. And last question, do we have to watch the videos? No, you do not. I do recommend that you do, though, whenever they're provided, especially if you get things wrong and you just try and jump all over the place, at least give it a shot. If you feel you've already done the stuff and you know how to do it, you're good. You can try some of my YouTube videos as well. If you ask me, Mr. Robinson, I didn't understand the Khan Academy video. I won't be able to get to your Zoom. Do you have any other supporting videos with this stuff? And I'll be able to say yes or no. And if I say yes, I'll link you to it. If I say no, I'll say, but if I can show you some stuff if you want to. Either let me know or hop onto Zoom at some point. Maybe we can make that happen. All right, guys. So that was Mr. Robinson's Power Hour there. Ended up going 70 minutes, but that ought to do it for this one. Hopefully you kind of found what you were looking for when you asked your questions here. I will be on Zoom today. It's Friday from 11 to noon. All those videos going to be uploaded after that, and 1 to 2 for applied math. But check out the description section for timestamps if you want to look back at any other questions there. All right, so that'll take care of it, guys. The week 2 Q&A thing, again, it'll be based on new content. So you'll get a new week's worth of stuff, and you can ask questions up through Friday at 8 a.m. to get week 2 Mr. Robinson's Power Hour. And I hope that I can get within an hour the next time here. But thanks for asking the questions. Try and keep it more math content based. I don't want as many questions this time on the how do you do Khan Academy, how do you do iExcel, all that kind of stuff. I've answered the questions in several different forms now, and that's what makes these videos longer. So hopefully you find your way through that, guys. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Take care and good luck.